that kind of unhealthy competition. The question is from Psycho Doraemon at Twitter, and example those comparisons and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting for about amateurs and professionals. So actually, I didn't understand very well this unhealthy competition. I guess so. Amateurs try to how can I say make prices cheaper and things like that. But I guess with your experience and because you have worked in such great projects, very often you have some advice because you deal with big Hollywood producers and companies. So this kind of market knows to separate the amateurs from the professionals. So, but do you have any advice to people that want to be in the market, so to be more professional than amateurs?
Okay, sure. I think there's many ways to answer this question. There's a lot of different things. One of them, the thing that separates, I think, professionals from, I guess, amateur. A lot of it has to do with just your attitude and the way you approach things. For us, every project to us, we always treat it as a project that no matter how big or how small they are, you always do your best job on it. So you walk into the job thinking that I'm gonna conquer this thing. I'm gonna do everything I can to make this project hit the shelves, like I mentioned earlier. And anything like criticism or meeting deadlines, all these things has to be perfectly met. I think for me, I worked with some I guess people that are not yet professional, and you run into problems. For example, you tell them, "Hey, this thing is due on Friday, 9 a.m." And then what you get is a call on Thursday night around midnight saying, I had my computer crash and the file got eaten, so therefore I cannot turn it in. Those kind of things will really hurt your careers, because professionals, we don't do that kind of stuff. Because if that was to happen, you would definitely work from midnight all the way to 9 a.m. to make sure you have something to turn in. Whereas on more of an amateur side, say, hey, sorry dude, it crashed, I don't have it. Because the thing you don't realize is that we work in production. We're not generating some kind of artwork to be hung in a gallery. When you have something due on a deadline, that thing at 9 o'clock is going to trigger some kind of meeting. That probably involves a lot of people making very good salaries per hour. So if you don't turn that drawing in, a lot of people are going to be wasting their time, and that would then equal back to whose fault was it. And so designers who pull that kind of stuff off generally won't survive long in the industry. And of course, understanding generally professionals, how they understand the pipeline. They understand that we're here to make things. We're here to slot into, I guess, sometimes 1,000 different people will be working on this. And how do you slot yourself in and be very smooth to the process of production? It's something that takes time to get. We generally get someone who hasn't worked in the industry for too long. They're very green as far as when to turn things and how do you turn things, and even how you sign your name, how do you date something. These are kind of things that if you do it wrong, could cause some kind of problems down the pipeline. And so generally, I think to cross that barrier, just get yourself a good job. Find some studio, anything, even if it's a small studio that's doing some very small applications. Who cares? You get real world experience and put that thing on the shelf somewhere. You're gonna learn very, very fast.
Well, thank you, Feng. So, more than being an artist, it's very important to be integrated in a staff work, in a team work, and be integrated in a pipeline production for sure. And so, being professional is more than only being an artist. So you have to take care about your skills as an artist, but also as a member of a team. So very interesting. It's very important because sometimes, especially the young artists, probably they don't realize how important is being involved in a teamwork. And this kind, I guess, this kind of experience you can teach to your students. So more than being amazing artists from your staff and following your example, they can live in a real industry environment with professionals that you can select, so you can offer much more than only design lessons. You can offer to them real industry experience lessons. So it's very amazing, and this is the richness of having your business, managing your school with your industry experience. So I guess you just approach a very important point to the artist. Thank you very much. Um, and another thing very interesting, you said that about 15 or 13 years ago. So when you started your career, so uh, when you start drawing or painting or dealing with design, uh, using computer tools was something brand new. How was, as far as you remember, how was your experience with computer tools to create art on your beginning, please?
Okay, that's a very interesting question versus regarding using a computer to my work. Yes, I actually started, I guess, just playing around with the computer and Photoshop and Wacom back in about '96. This is my parents were quite cool that they bought me a Wacom, because back then I think it was very very expensive. It was not even called a Wacom Intuos. It was called, I think, the Artsy Pad or something funny like that, and looked very ugly. It's a big white utilitarian looking device. Since its sensitivity is very low, and the Photoshop was version, I don't think 4 perhaps, or something probably even earlier than that. Basically, no, you get one undo. There's no history. There's no layer options per se or anything like that. It's very very basic. And the school that I went to didn't really teach it to us at all, because I learned everything the traditional way with markers, gouache, pencil, and all that drawn on paper. Because digital at the time was quite slow. We're talking still about computers that are, the first Pentium chips and these kind of things. So they weren't ready to power digital painting. I think the technology had to go with it, which you see nowadays, where with programs like ZBrush and Photoshop, they're very very fast and they run fast on fast machines. So I actually didn't really use it until about early 2000s, about year 2001, 2002, is when Photoshop started to get involved heavily into our professional work. I use it at home to mess around, because on a professional level, you can't use company time to mess around. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially when you're freelancing and they're paying you per hour or per day. You can't tell your clients, oh, I spent a whole day messing around trying to learn something. They're not going to let you do that. So for professional work, I really didn't get involved until '01, '02. And back then it was quite simple. It's just scanning a traditional drawing, still drawn in on paper, and use Photoshop to just apply some basic values. But around 2003 is when the Intuos 2, I think, came out, around that time period. And that's also when the faster computers started hitting the market, and 3D was really getting very, very fast. And that's when I transitioned in 2003, I say about July-ish. I transitioned to 100% digital. So since then, I haven't drawn anything for professional work, that is, on paper at all. So digital is definitely the way to go. So yeah, it's really cool to kind of went through the time period, because I think the younger kids nowadays really missed out on a very interesting time period when the Photoshop wasn't what it is today, and nowadays like the norm, right? The first thing you do now is Photoshop. So it's quite interesting.
Thank you, Feng. Yes, yes, you really well, perfect. You see, this kind of experience that you bring with you, it's very important. So I don't know if the audience can notice, but behind the lines that you are saying to us, so it's to be in a very competitive market, in a very competitive environment. So it's not only being an artist, but also take care about a lot of details, like having, for instance, good tools, good hardware. How can I say, master them for sure, and be prepared for any problem, like any accident, like failures and this kind of thing. So to survive in a such competitive environment, as you said, you need to be more professional, or as professional as a artist. So it's very important. I don't know if the audience can notice behind what Feng is telling us, that it's the pipeline, the production. So it's very important to take care about these details. So it doesn't really important. You have to be an artist, but you have to be also a professional to make a good reputation, good name. You need to be professional, and you have to take care about everything, your tools and other things. Thank you very much, Feng. And here we also have a question uh, about if you are going to produce your YouTube tutorials, and you also produce Gnomon tutorials, video tutorials, but are you going to produce also YouTube tutorials, continue to produce YouTube tutorials?
Uh, yeah, the question was, am I continuing the design cinema stuff on YouTube? And the question is definitely yes. I think it's actually got to make one sometime today or tomorrow. Actually, it's due probably this week. It's something that I always enjoy doing, which is sharing with the community, because our industry is quite niche per se. It's a very huge industry if you think about it as a whole. And the video game and film industry dominates the planet. It's very hard to walk into any country, no matter how big or how small, and show them a picture of Darth Vader, and the kid will probably know that it's Star Wars. So that's how big our industry is. However, to work in it it's almost unknown. How do you work on a Star Wars? How do you work on Transformers? This kind of things that is very hidden, I guess, from most, I guess, bigger schools, that they don't just share this with you. So even back in '98, I think is when I started my website, I had tutorials up, and back then it was very new to share how conceptual art was done. Back then there was no DVDs, there were no behind the scenes of making ofs. Nomen DVDs was still 5-6 years away at that time. So I think that helped quite a bit of people, and the same thinking went into when we started the Nomen DVDs. Because when Alex and I talked, Alex Alvarez, who's the founder, we were also heading into a realm we didn't know about. We sat down for coffee and just thought, hey, can we bring those tutorials to a video format, to do a DVD with it? And we took a chance, and those DVDs did extremely well. I mean, both of us were seriously shocked when we saw the numbers after about a month of sales. We were expecting to sell like maybe 10 or something like that. And then we saw the numbers come back, and it was just insane amount of stuff that was sold around the world. And then we saw clients from Sony to Disney, just basically every major studio was grabbing these up. So obviously it shows the opportunities out there for tutorials. But nowadays, with online, you gotta tailor a business differently. I think for me, I think to keep the YouTube videos free with knowledge is one of those ways, because at the end of the day, what I'm showing on those videos is tricky. It's stuff that you could try at home. However, if you lack the fundamental skills, it's very hard to do those kind of things I'm showing you in the tube. And the thing there is to tell you, hey, if you really want to learn the perspective, the fundamentals of lighting, the construction, all the kind of basic things you need to get to in school. And in a way, our school provides that, and so do many other design schools, right? So it's more of a opportunity to open it up for people just who are curious, especially the younger generation who might not know exactly what we do, and they see that, oh, I see concept art for film and games is quite different than doing artwork. Then which side am I on? Do I do art to be in a gallery, or am I more interested in drawing a giant gun for a Gears of War 3 or something like that? It's a different industry, and those videos will then show an approach how we do it. So and at the end of the day, to just try to make the whole community aware, and that will then make everybody aware of the thing. So that's why I do them. So yeah, I'll continue doing them.
Thank you, Zan. Yes, it's it's uh, it's really amazing the quality and the quality of the content and the way you explain the issues in your video tutorials. It's really amazing. So I can imagine. I don't have a normal video tutorial, but I can imagine how much information and we can learn from them. It's really amazing, your video tutorials. Thank you for continue producing on YouTube. It's very important because some people doesn't have access to the normal video tutorial, but through YouTube they are fortunate to be with you for your tutorials. We have also an audience question here. You said very important about the new generation of artists and that you teach in your school these principal and basic design concepts. But see, if you have any tips for training the mind to be more creative and in the visual solutions and variety in the visual project that it presents, what can you share with us about this question, please?
Okay, so this is a very, very important question, which is how do you be more creative? Actually, that's more important actually than all the stuff you would be doing with your hands, like drawing, because the process of drawing is something that I think could be taught to a majority of people. If you just take anybody off the street and just say, here, sit down for 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and just draw every single day, the likelihood of that person, no matter who they are, probably after 5 years, they'll probably draw pretty well, because drawing, the process of drawing itself is a mechanical skill. If you think about it, it's training your eye and your hand to make things on a paper. But the hard part is then, what are you drawing on the piece of paper when all you have in front of you is a white canvas? And that therefore becomes the imagination. And now not everyone has an active imagination, and that's something a school, even for us, something that it's very hard to train into a student, because it has something to do with how you were raised, what kind of world are you exposed to. For example, when you're young, did you go to museums? Did you travel a lot? Did you read books? Did you read magazines, watch TV, watch films? Anything that feeds the brain is necessary for our business. And not because, again, we're one of the core things we're asked to do is to create new places, create new worlds, or create new experiences. And it's very hard to create something new if you don't know how it works today, in how the world functions, right? For example, how come a fox walking in snow doesn't freeze his paws off? Or how does a plant get water into its leaves? How does the earth rotate? Why is it hot around the equator? These are all more science-based things, and that's exactly what we do, because you use that kind of logic to come up with worlds that are somewhat believable. If you look at films, if you look at Avatar and these type of films, you could tell the designers put a lot of thought into making it believable, because there is random design, which is like, I'm just going to draw anything random on this page, and yes, it's a design, but is it going to sell to the major audience? And then there's designs that looks fresh, but yet a 7-year-old kid or a 70-year-old in the audience could look at it and understand it. Generally, the major products, the very successful products out there, caters to this market, and that takes a lot of knowledge of understanding, of knowing how things work, and I've ran into many situations like that. One of them, for example, working with Cameron on a different film, not Avatar, another movie that he's currently doing. It's also futuristic, and we just ask him what, you know, I can't give away too much stuff, but it's in the future. And as a designer, we just ask him, okay, what is the power source that you want for this future? And he gives us a very simple answer, because you could say fuel cell, you could say nuclear, you could say something, some kind of crystal, whatever. Right? He gave us one right away. Just by that energy source alone, we could then design the entire city based off that. Because say for example you're using nuclear, and then that'll completely change the way things work. For example, what if it's diesel? Then that's going to create pollution, create heat, create traffic problems. You're still using wheels, right? One answer tailors to all sorts of different things. As a designer, your brain must think way ahead of the curve and deliver designs that matches what the client is asking for. So back to the original question of how do you be creative, and simple one is expose your mind, travel a lot, subscribe to every single visual magazine you could get, National Geographic, Popular Mechanics, Scientific America. The list goes on and on. A bunch of cool magazines from the UK, for example, have these kind of like how things work, these kind of things, and then watch shows like Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, all the same type of things. Just feed the brain. And sometimes I don't even watch the TV. I just have it on, and my brain is basically absorbing information. They'll say things like, "Oh, the Arctic fox doesn't freeze his paws off because he has some kind of blood vessel that travels back and forth next to each other. So the warm blood going back down cools the blood that's cold going back up." Right? These kind of things, and you learn. You're like, wow. So if I ever design a creature that's living in the snow, I'll know how to handle its anatomy. Right? So, yeah. So expose the world. Don't really rely too much on art of books. For example, looking at other people's art, or get the art of Star Wars or something like that and look through that, because you're looking at the world through somebody else's eyes. You're looking at their designs. Yeah, it's a great source for technique. I think great source to get inspired by. But if you want to learn how the world works, look at the real world. Look at nature, especially, or architecture, things that exist and things that work, right? And then do your own designs based off that. So hope that helps. Drink some water.
Thank you, Zhu, Feng. And about what you just said, so it's very important to, how can I say, to drink from a good source, and having a very visual reference, so you can absorb good imagery, and it's really important in your how can I say, in your process of being an artist. Also search and research for reference. So being in contact with these references is very important. So never stop studying, never stop practicing, and this is one of the keys, I guess, for the success. We can see, and in my impressions, just meanwhile you were telling, you were speaking, so that you are very dynamic, and it's important. So see, this is a kind of example for the audience that it's nice to be followed. So don't just rely on your gift. Don't just rely on your skill. You have to practice all time, I guess. Behind the lines, or beyond the lines, you can see the attitude that Feng has while he's answering the questions. So be dynamic, don't stop, practice every time. So another question: how important 2D illustrations are for a 3D project? Because you are dealing with movie industry and also game industry, so a lot of 3D environment. So 2D illustrations, or to be a 2D artist, how important is this environment in a 3D a 3D environment, please?
Okay, I think the question was how important is the skill when working on a project that's completely 3D based. Well, of course, the answer is it's very, very important because I don't think you could go to any film studio in Hollywood that's creating big, massive 3D films and not find conceptual artwork on the wall. Because what we do, again, is production, and we're usually the first in line to visually start the project. And 2D often is used, especially for environments, are very expensive. Because if you think about a shot in a film like Transformers or Avatar or whatever, per minute you're looking at millions of dollars being spent on it. Nowadays it's probably up to about 1.5 million US per minute. So they're not simply gonna just do it. They're not gonna do a shot and go, hey, let's try it out. Because if you fail, you just burned about $2 million. So they utilize 2D to do a lot of conceptual design, camera movement, lighting, storytelling. All these things are done actually first in 2D. So they put a lot of pressure on us to actually figure a lot of stuff out. Are you using the right millimeter of film? For this shot, if you want it to be creepy or whatever, are we sticking with the 25 mil? Are we going to a 50? Or for this shot, are we going for 200 mil? And you have to know what lenses then to produce what kind of shot with, right? And that goes back to the fundamental skills of knowing your perspective and how things work. So our job often is to help save money and to help also then of course visualize the project, and then the next step that is to work with a 3D artist. So if they're building a certain set for a game or whatever, what they often do is they'll build it to about 10%, so the model looks very great, there's no detail, nothing like that, and they often send those things back to the art department for us to then render on top of the 3D, because the director often already has shot the sequence using those gray models, so the shot looks great, but now we have to visualize it. And that also saves a lot of money because you only detail what you need, right? Anything that's, it's really fun to watch films before they're done, because you'll see how the set extension literally stops at the edge of the shot, because if you overbuild it, it's a waste of money. So you can watch like Transformers and stuff like that where they have no legs, where they have no hand, because anything that's not in the shot is deleted. So it's really fun, and the 2D department often helps with that. Another thing we do is lighting. To light in Photoshop is much faster. So if they have a 3D scene that they want to get a certain mood, they'll just spit out into the art department, and then we'll maybe do 3 different passes on it. One's red, one's blue, etc. Because it only takes a few minutes to do that. Versus in 3D, even to do a lighting test would take you at least a few minutes to render, to test, and to rig, and those kind of things. And the bigger the company, the slower it is to test in 3D. Because like IOM, for example, will have a modeling department, they'll have a texture department, they'll have a rigging department. Every department is segregated. So to do a lighting test, you have to submit it into the pipeline, send it to the lighter guys, you have to do a test. Whereas you just send it to the art department, it will be done in 15 minutes. So yeah, 2D skills is something is never going to go away.
Okay, thank you, Zhu. And we it's impressive. So dealing with such very well expensive projects, it's very important to, as you said before, to be professional. So we have a question here, very interesting, from Clive Nicholas. If you already had some problems, some issues with deadlines and things, so it's amazing. But I think it's almost a something personal. But have you ever failed before? And if it happens, because sometimes it can happen, what can you tell to the audience or to the young artists? What encouragement so you can give to the budding artist who aspires to be like you? So not only a great artist, but a great professional too, please.
Okay, another great question about, I think is really, really good, because I think the best way to be successful actually is to fail. because you will learn everything there is to know about the right way to approach something. Because if you're always aiming to be the best or aiming to be successful, you're probably missing out on the 50% of things that you should be careful with. And failing is often the case. And for me, in my career, I mean, so many things go wrong where you fail on this or you try this, it fails. But you don't let those things bring you down, because you're like, okay, how did I mess up, or how did I not achieve this? And then the next time you do it, you'll do it so much more efficient and so much faster. And have that happen, especially when I was younger, when I was starting out. I started when I was like, I think 19. So I got into the industry back then. Everything was new. I mean, 3D was new. There was no Nvidia. There's no ATI. There was just 3D effects, I think. So none of us in the industry actually even knew how to deal with 3D. We're still using alias wavefront. And so you're like, hey, this is cool. Let's try to build this whole thing in 3D. And you spend a whole week building these massive 3D models, and you realize, oh, we can't export them out because the game engine can only take 300 polygons max. You know what I'm saying? So you go through roads where you fail, where you plan for such great things, but you can't do them. The one the project I worked on, which never shipped, was Wing Commander Online, and we had such a great vision for this game, but the technology just wasn't ready. But we built giant space stations, we built planets, we built them all in Alias, and later realized when you put all the things together, the game cannot work because the polygon count. So you fail big time. You do all this concept art, you do all this crazy stuff on it, and none of it comes into light. But then you start to learn. You go, maybe next time we should test things out. We should do this, do that. Because I did work in a time when 3D was so exciting. And so a lot of different things come and fail. And on top of that, for example, even though I shipped a lot of games, I think I also worked on the equal number of projects that actually died, that went under. Some of them go as far as a year into them, and never see the daylight. And I think for the audience listening, one of them actually I think might actually see the day, which is a game called Duke Nukem Forever. This game is a kind of a rumor, I don't know, it's a much talked about thing in the video game industry because it's been in development for 10 years now or something like ridiculously long. Right, so projects like that you get onto as well, where the project seems really cool and comes on and off. I worked on it personally on and off for about 3 years. And you're like, what did I do all that work for? You do all this stuff, and then but you never know. It comes back to life. I think recently it was bought by a company and they're going to bring it back. But the general sense of that is don't ever give up, because you never know what you're going to get out from it. So I tell our students the same thing, which is the reason why our school is so hard is because we want you to feel that pressure of, am I going to make it? Am I going to make mistakes? And under the kind of pressure, you will make mistakes and you will fail on certain things. But you use that to give you energy to learn from it, get better, right? So don't ever give up. Just keep doing it.
All right, thank you. Yes, very interesting. And by working with on these great projects, we also have another question here from Nenad. So at the studio, how do you make compromise between this deadline, so what quality and profitability? This is very important, especially because you said that there are some projects that have died and don't give up. So well, it's really important.
Yes, I think, am I going to the next question? I guess I will. The question I see on my screen right now is, at the studio, how do you make compromise between deadline, art quality, and profitability? And this is a very good question, especially if you are freelancing or your studio is very, very small. For me, the number one thing always, this is for anything, the deadline is the number one important thing. No matter what you do, you never miss the deadline. And never give excuses, because clients, especially the bigger studios, they've heard them all. So you're never gonna say things like my computer crashed or my family's sick or something. It doesn't matter. An excuse at the end of the day is an excuse. So the deadline is something we never use. So I mean, deadline is something we never miss. So if someone says it's due Friday morning 9, you better turn it in. So the next question is then how do you balance that out? Well, for designers, the longer you have worked in the industry, the easier it is for you to know how long something will take. When I was starting out, it was quite difficult. I'll actually be not losing money per se, but basically trading that for sleep. Because you can tell the clients, okay, they want say 3 vehicle designs. So you tell them, okay, those will take me 2 days. But as you do the 2 days, you realize, holy cow, I'm not doing anything good so far. So then it becomes 3 days because you give up the entire night of sleep to try to do it. But you already told the clients 2 days, so you build them for 2 days. But over time, you start to learn, oh, to do a vehicle, it takes me, say, 2 hours or 3 hours, or whatever. So you could give the clients a pretty accurate estimate of how long something would take. Therefore, you're not pressuring yourself, you're not working overtime. The clients is getting what they want at a deadline, and you're not losing any money because you're not working into the hours that you quoted. So that's the general sense to do, which is keep a clock on your studio table and get an average of how long something takes you. You should really know from a sketch to a painting to something that's very final, each one on average how long it takes, and then use that to do your work. So don't ever kind of go into a mode where you're going to miss deadline, where you promise the clients 3 paintings and you deliver 1. That is probably the number one way to kill your career. So.
Thank you again, Feng. It's really interesting, and one of the things that I would like to highlight is this experience that you can again teach to your students, and for sure you know a lot of companies. Your network is very how can I say, big, I guess, and as well as you know other school design schools. So by having this network, we have another interesting question here from the audience, from Lucian Liu. So by having all these experience and by handling with in this environment, so what you can get and bring to your school, and so by and make Feng Zhu Design School better or different from the other design schools. So what is the key that you get and bring to your school to make it better and better and to improve anytime, every time?
Okay, so the question about what makes FZD better or different. Well, first of all, I don't like to use the word better because I think no matter what school it is, any school in the world, everybody offers something. I think for a school, you have to see it from a student's point of view. Is what is the school exactly offering you? Is it gonna give you something that puts you into the career that you want to? And that's always up to the student's way. But some of the things I think FZD offers. One is that we're all industry experienced people, especially myself as a founder, that what we teach is exactly what the industry uses. For myself, when I went to my school, which is Art Center, it was the same way. And for students, I think that's so important because then you trust the instructors, you trust that what they're telling you is true, that it's not something that's 10 years out of date, which sometimes you get. Certain places I visited, I've seen that kind of stuff happen where the technique being taught is no longer valid in our industry. Again, we're not doing things art. we're doing design. If a technique is something we use now, then we have to teach it. If it's a technique that's no longer used, we don't teach it, right? As simple as that. And that's, I think, is a huge advantage. Another one is, like you mentioned earlier, the network I have. The students here have a very good opportunity, especially the ones that do very well, because I can introduce them directly into major studios in the U.S. or Europe. And you don't have to go through, say, the HR department, which is almost impossible. Because they're going to look at your resume and say, oh, a student, we only look for 5 years and experience or more, so they just ditch your resume. But for me, I could go straight to the founder or the art director or whoever is in charge in the studio and say, hey, look, I know you're looking for 5 years experience, but I got a student here who's really hardworking, is really good. And they're like, yeah, sure, take a look, because there's always exception to the rule. They put those kind of things generally on the websites not to say, oh, we're going to stick to this 5-year rule. They put it there to prevent the 99% of resumes that come in are just terrible, right? I mean, at places like IOM or Blur Studio, these things, they'll get hundreds and hundreds of resumes a week, and yeah, about 99% of it are not even people that are remotely close to finding the job. I mean, they think they are. For example, a lot of people think they play video games, therefore they can work in the video game industry, right? They're not the same thing. So you get resumes where it's just like themselves showing themselves playing video games. Like, what is that going to do as a designer, Or say, I play World of Warcraft for, level 70, so I should be a designer. That's not how to get a job. So they put those kind of things there to kind of prevent people from submitting. So even if you're a student, if you're good, they're not going to stick to any of those kind of rules. The companies are very smart. They're not going to lose an asset, especially one that could potentially grow into something that's very valuable for the studio. So that's something we offer here as well. And another thing is, I think we're pretty fast program. We teach the fundamentals. That's our main core here. So once you learn that kind of stuff, you could then go on down the right road. I think it's very important that your route, your starting point, is correct. Instead of saying, hey, there's 5 different roads you could go down, and each class offers, where each instructor tells you a different way to go down there. What happens is you tend to get students that get very confused. One teacher will say, oh, to do life drawing, you do it this way. Another one says, no, you should do it this way because that's the right way. And the students tend to get very confused. Here, because we're making products, there is a very simple way to do it. Here's step 1, here's step 2, step 3. And if you look at the industry as a whole, those are always followed, because we're making products. We're making something to be built. So it's a manufacturing process, and what we teach is the beginning stages of it. So you're always heading down the right road. But at the end of the day, up to the student. The student can check out our website. They can talk to our counselors. They can find out, are we the right one for them, or is Noman the right one? Doesn't matter, because they're all good and they're all friends of mine. Noman's a really good friend of mine. Our center obviously is the school I went to, so they're very good to me. So it's not about competition or being better. It's about the student. So hope that answers the question.
Yes, for sure. Thank you very much, Feng. After, I guess, a lot of so professional questions, we have another one here. It's, I guess, more relaxing. It's about, and I am curious too, because I can feel, and my impression, you are such a dynamic and so professional in a rush. So how can you find inspiration to create your work, or movies or music, or to work in, I guess you work on such a pressure environment, so you can feel the pressure on your shoulder. So what do you do to relax or to get more inspiration? So it's really, I guess it's really interesting. I was guessing here, wow, what this man does to get some relaxing time and things like that. So thank you again for your wonderful attention, and this question is pop up, please.
Okay, so the question is, excuse me 1 second as LV help you something. The question is, what do I do for inspiration or for fun? And yeah, there's a lot of different things. Okay, Okay, sorry about that. Getting help for doing something technical. For me, a lot of different things. I think one of them is traveling. I love traveling with my wife. We used to go everywhere. It's kind of like find a place on Earth and go check it out. And for her, it's fun to see a new city. For me, it's actually about the experience itself. We travel all over the world because we taught the students the same thing. It's very different seeing something in a picture, like the Eiffel Tower. You're in France, right? The Eiffel Tower you see in a picture, you never get this how big it is until you're actually underneath it. I mean, the scale of that building, that structure is massive. And no matter what photo you see it in, you're never going to get that sense of that awe-inspiring power that is in that structure, for example. And same thing, I love ancient culture. I've been to the Mayan temples and all these places. To walk on the steps of an ancient Mayan temple changes you forever. You'll get that feeling of the material, how that rock feels against your feet, how the rock texture feels upon your hands. These are kind of things as you do a painting, you could bring all those memories in. You could feel it as you work. So that's one of them. So traveling is one. Two, I play a lot of video games. But I play games not really to play them. I play them to just look at them because I think video games are really, really cool, especially games coming out today. I mean, the last 2-3 years, you're seeing an explosion of just games that look so good that you just stare at the screen going, oh my gosh, how are they making these games? So I have a very fast computer at home. I just buy whatever it's on the market and install them and just play to check them out. But of course they're fun as well. But I even play games that suck simply because they have good artwork. I don't really care. I just look at them. And then of course, I watch movies. I watch movies a lot. One, to keep updated to what the industry is doing, and two is because they're fun to watch and you get inspired. And I do a lot of sports activities as well, just to clear your mind. Bicycling, canoeing, or just traveling to go hiking the jungles for 3 days with the backpack. So that's a very guy thing, I guess. But in LA, one of the biggest things I used to do, which I cannot do here in Singapore anymore, which is fly airplanes, because I think it's a big challenge. Yeah, it's a big challenge to do, and flying planes is very hard. And it's one of those things where you ask yourself, man, it's so hard. Can I do it myself? Try. It's a challenge. So. That's something I used to do as well. And
Wow.
I noticed there's people from our center in the chat forum. So yeah, so I say hi to them as well.
Wow. Okay, thank you, Feng. So, real planes, no flight simulations. I guess it's it's much more challenging real planes, I guess. So back to the professional environment. So it's really interesting. We have another questions. I can say very interesting questions. Thank you, the audience, for posting them. We are just want to apologize because Fang is in Singapore, its art is in France. I am here in Canada, so it's very it's a big distance. So we are getting some delay, but it's impressive. Thank you for the audience for being here. Wonderful. Thank you, Fang, again. So here's the question. You can see it on the screen. Would you like to work on any franchise or from your side? So it's really interesting to hear from you this question, this answer, please.
Does he want to continue longer?
Well, I guess we have almost 1 hour. So according to your schedule, we
Great
can
question.
finish
Question is there any property or
when you
franchise
wish,
I'd like to work
for
on but
sure.
haven't? Oh
And
man, that is a really cool
the
one. I
other
think
questions that
for me as
probably
a
won't
kid
be
growing up, there were a
answered,
few
we can
projects
answer
or
later.
even directors I really to want to work with, and one of those properties was actually Indiana Jones. Star Wars was one. Indiana Jones was the other one. I think working with James Cameron was one of them. So.
Okay, okay, thank you. And well,
Hold up, I think the Alex, can you
other
hear me?
thing
I think
that
I should
it's
stay here
really
for a bit.
interesting, I guess, it's according to your experience, what are the main difference, if there are, when you are creating? Yes, thank you. So I was asking the difference, if there is, between creating a concept for a movie or a game industry. What is, in your opinion, better for you, or you're more comfortable with creating for or working for games or working for movies?
Okay. The question is, which one do I prefer, games or films? Or comfortable with? For me, is the same. I think they bring different types of fun to the projects. Obviously, on the film side, it's very different than games because you're working on projects that are just so much energy. Because films are usually under some kind of very tight deadline, and you're going from one department to another. So one day you might be drawing stuff, next day you're on the set checking out whatever you designed, and they're asking you how to build it correctly, all sorts of stuff. It's very interactive, and then you have directors working with you, chatting about story. Because a film at the end of the day is a story delivery device, right? You're spending about 2 hours going into the director's world. So you're designing everything to cater to that story. Whereas in games, it's a complete different experience. Sometimes games could last, the production could last about 2-3 years. So you really get to know the team members. Whereas in films, you generally work for about 6 months, 7 months, and the team disbands, at least the concept stage. So you work quite close with everyone, and then 7 months later, you're everyone's on different projects. Or on games, I get to know the team members. Even as a freelancer, I get to know them really well, and they're really fun. And you're also building worlds that are completely in 3D that the players get to interact with. So the amount of work is actually way more on the game side, because the film side, you're basically doing shots, right? A majority of the films are just switching from one environment to another. Typically, not even too many. If you actually count how many sets there are in a film on a major expensive movie, they aren't many because it's too expensive. So all you gotta do is work on those particular shots. Whereas in games, you're talking about levels minimum, probably 5 to 10 levels of different things, and each level is all in 3D. So anywhere the player is pointing his camera, you gotta be able to see cool stuff, right? So you gotta design everything. Whereas in films, the camera is controlled by us. We only design what the director wants the audience to see. So the work process is quite different. But I enjoy both. Games, on the other hand, though, you get to play them very early on, which is always fun. You get to enjoy them in an alpha stage or beta stage. But of course, the film side is you get to go to a premiere or something like that and see all the work you've done on the big screen, and the audience, you can see the reaction. I guess you can see it. Versus the game, you have no idea how someone is enjoying it in their home. But in the audience, after the film is over and people's like, "Well, that's cool," or talking about it on the internet and stuff, like, that's cool. It's a different rewarding experience, I guess. So, but both fun.
Thank you, Feng. And we have just it's impressive how many things you I can imagine how many things you do during your day. And we have two questions from the audience. I guess it's really interesting. How you manage your daytime, your daily schedule. So one of them it's from Chris Bors, and the other one is Mr. X Alexander. So the do you have any good general tips for scheduling your time, whether you have a job or not? This is one. And the other one is, what is your daily schedule, please? So I guess they are connected somehow.
Okay, another great question, which is good tips on scheduling your time. Oh man, this is really hard for me when I was freelancing. Freelancing, because you don't have a full-time job, you tend to not know when projects come in. So what we often do is we take on pretty much as much work as you can, because just in case no one calls you for a 2 month, you still have plenty of things to do. But I think the easiest way, one, get yourself a very big clock of some kind, a big digital clock so you can see big giant numbers, and put it right in front of your studio. So as you work, keep an eye on it and tell yourself, hey, I should finish this by say 2 a.m. or whatever. I like to work at night, so it's always like 4 a.m. or something like that. So I tell myself, okay, finish this by 4 a.m. And before, unless you're done with it, don't do anything else. I think distractions is one of the biggest killers of difference between professionals and non-professionals, because I think I generally watch, for example, in my Beijing studio, I have 60 people working over there, and sometimes I just like to watch people work, and you notice that a lot of people are actually doing other stuff besides working, surfing web or whatever, chatting with their friends and whatever. So essentially, they're in a day's work, they're doing about half of what the whole day is. So they're spending 4 hours instead of 8. Now, personally as an employee, I don't really care whatever they're doing. However, if you look at it, how someone could advance using that kind of schedule,
Yes, it's
someone who did
amazing.
8 hours of work in a week is doing, many, many times more production than someone who isn't. So for me, it's always, if I'm doing something, I do it until it's done. And over time, you get very fast at it, and you actually learn to not get distracted by anything. Like things nowadays with the internet, with YouTube and Facebook, on that, it's very easy. It's very tempted to take a break and do something, and that'll eat your time. That'll eat 5 minutes away here and there, 10 minutes, and as soon as you know it, you wasted an hour, 2 hours or something. That's enough to do a painting. And if you're fast and manage your time well as a freelance designer, I mean, you can make a very good living doing this, because you can take on 3, 4 different projects at once, and the clients would never know, because you're delivering work that's really, really good. And long as they're happy with it, they're not going to say, "Did you do that in 2 hours?" You could tell them, "Hey, no, I did this, all day or whatever," because your experience is factored into that. Whereas someone who's distracted is spend 2 days doing something that looks like that should be done in half an hour. That's not going to fly with the clients. They're going to know that it didn't take you 2 days, but you put it in for 2 days, right? That's not going to work. So yeah, get rid of distraction. That's one of the best way to manage schedule. Don't let people talk you into watching movies with them. Don't let them talk into, let's go hang out for 2 hours. Just get your work done, and then you have all the time in the world, and you're more relaxed because there's no more pressure. Everything's gone. You're like, I'm done. I could build the clients. I did good work on it, and then you can spend the rest of the weekend doing whatever you want. So that's probably the biggest advice I could give on as far as time management goes. Just don't get distracted.
Thank you again, Feng. So I guess this actually answers the next question, that is from Dong Yan Huang. So to be yes, like Feng Zhu, you need to work hard, hard, hard. So, but it's nice if you just could drop some words on this question, please, Feng. So your example, it's is really amazing. And actually, I think, yeah, any advice to make the artwork looks like you yours.
Okay, interesting question, which is don't look like Feng Zhu. I think this is one of those things that we see often. A good friend of mine, also Ryan, Church. I'm sure he knows him as well. Uh, we did stuff. I think on Star Wars and these kind of projects. Uh oh, we're getting lag. Hello, hello, hello. You guys hear me? Okay, I'll continue. So, and over, I think the stuff that was done in early 2000s. Craig Mullins is one of them. Another one. You get a bunch of guys that then started influencing a lot of younger students out there. As
Yes.
we review portfolios, we're like, oh, there's a Ryan look, and there's the Craig Mullins look or the Feng look. As a student, it's not bad to learn from others, but you have to break away from that because the clients out there have seen it as well. Especially the major clients out there, they've seen everything that's out there. So it's very important to not stylistically be too close to somebody else. So you got to find your own way to do your work, but that does take time. As you're starting out, it's not a bad thing. I don't think if you're doing good designs, nobody cares. Actually, the clients at the end of the day don't care what method you're using because they're paying for the design. They're not paying for the art. So if you have a fantastic design for a spaceship and it's drawing a Sid Mead style, no one's gonna care. They're gonna be like, "That's a cool spaceship," right? But over time, you slowly find your own way of doing things. So my method is actually it's not the Feng Zhu look. If you look back, it's very Joe Johnston, who goes back to 1977 for the original Star Wars because he was my inspiration for that kind of marker sketch. I love Joe Johnston's work. It's so cool that when I was going to school, I poured over his work over and over, and that's what I do. So I think for the younger fans out there, go back and look at Johnston's stuff back in the Star Wars because you'll see that it's exactly the same. And someone had a quick question about, I think, going back to the original question of you could get distracted while at home, which is very, very true. I did that in my early careers, which is like part of my house was my studio, and I found that was exactly to be the case because over there I had my TV, I had whatever my video game, my PlayStation, all that kind of stuff, and then it's very tempting to say, 5 minute break. I'm just gonna take 5 minute break and play some Grand Theft Auto or whatever, and then it turns into like a 2 hour break. So I decided to eventually actually get a physical studio in Hollywood and only put work stuff there, and told myself to go to work at 9 a.m. and come home around 6 or 7 as if it's a full-time job, even though I'm freelancing, that no one's telling me when to work, right? Because that way you get yourself into a routine of being professional, that there's no distraction. We didn't have a TV in my studio, and when we're there, because it's not your house, you have to act professional. And I also had a partner there, so you can't act like in your underwear and drawing and stuff like that. You have to carry yourself quite well, and that helps a lot because that gives you distractions. And you have lunch on time, right? Freelance artists generally don't eat well because they're working random hours and they eat at random times. So all those kind of things help. So if anyone who's freelancing out there or wants to plan it, get a couple of friends together, get a physical studio together. You don't have to be super nice or whatever, and make it into a work area versus doing it out of your house. That I don't advise too much. Otherwise, you become like a cave person. You don't interact with anybody, become introverted or whatever. Go out there and work with people. So hope that helps.
Thank you again, Feng. And as you said, socialize is it's important, and act as a professional also helps a lot. So you said that you do a lot of you try and you like to do sports. So we have a question here from Nick Harris that probably especially for games in your when you are working on game project. So uh, playing sports, I guess, we guess, understand you how the body works, so you can, especially for anatomy and action scenes and things like that. So playing sports, it's good to understand how the body works. In your opinion, I guess, to
Okay, so the question is sport good for understanding anatomy? I think from my perspective, for me personally, no, I don't think so. When I do those things, is more to just get my mind to relax and get away from thinking about work, because I'm sure the designers in the audience know that as a designer, you're pretty much thinking about design 24 hours a day. Even if you're sleeping, you're thinking about it, because that's the process of creation. You're creating in your mind. Your hand is just there to deliver that creation. So it's very hard to stop the brain from thinking. It gets tiring over time as well. You're trying to have fun or whatever, and then you're thinking about work. So when I do sports, there's no way to think about it, because you're pushing your body so hard. You have to do physical activities that you can't think about work. And it's also a great way to learn about discipline. This weekend, for example, I biked around for about 4.5 hours around Singapore, which is really, really tiring, especially the last 1 hour. But you have to tell yourself, you can't give up. You gotta do it. That's the way to do it. And that kind of thinking is also carried in the professional world. There's been many times when I was younger and pulling out nighters, like staying up all night and doing work, just thinking, man, this is so hard. I could just give it up, or just tell the clients, oh man, I couldn't do it. But then in the back of your head is saying, no, you can't do that. You cannot tell the clients excuses. You got to carry it through. So you go to the kitchen, put on some more coffee, and just talk your way into it. I think a lot of the people who do sports really well, they talk themselves into doing well, because it's so easy to give up. But if you just tell yourself, mentally, no, I could do this, to have fun. Once I'm done, I'm done. If you could carry that into your work, man, it's really, really cool. And I've done that before when I'm pulling all-nighters. Just this is cool. I think about what you're doing, thinking, designing video games. You go, man, someone's paying you to draw aliens and draw big guns, whatever. Who else has this job on the planet? Most people are working Excel sheets and these kind of things, and you're here drawing aliens with guns. It doesn't even seem like a job. So let those kind of inspirations feed you, and that's what I use for sports as well. So cool.
All right, thank you. And we have some more questions here, but it's one thing that I guess interesting about the audience that it's following us. Uh, what are the requirements, or are there requirements to be a student in Feng Zhu Design School? What should a student keep in mind when they enter your school? The main point. What could you say to them, please, Feng?
Okay, good question, which is what kind of students we are looking for here. I think for those who join us a little later, I could just repeat the thing, which is in our industry is not about this your hand and drawing. This thing we could teach you. No matter any school could teach you to draw well. The kind of students we're looking for is, are you really meant for this industry? Do you have a love and passion for games and films? Because if you don't have that, it's very hard to succeed. So often we don't really ask them, do you like to draw and do all that kind of, because again, we could teach you this. This is what the school is for. The school is here to teach you techniques, how to draw well, how to render well. But it's very hard to teach us the stuff I mentioned earlier, is how much of the world do you know? And do you even understand what this industry is? A lot of people, I think, generally wants to get into the industry because it seems fun from the outside, and it is fun. But they see like it's an industry full of video games and films and behind the scenes and directors and movie stars and whatever. Yes, it's fun, but at the end of the day, it's hard work, and you have to love it to enjoy it. You can't simply get in just because it seems fun. You have to put the hard work. And so the general question we ask are like, what kind of films do you watch? Do you know about this video game, or what do you do for fun? we determine someone's attitude or interest in this field by those kind of answers. If you ask them, have you seen films like 2001? Have you watched Star Wars? Or have you played games like Zelda? And there's a big blank on their face, and like, no, never done those things. Then you're like, why do you want to get into this industry in the first place? You have no love for these projects that established this industry in the first place. If you don't know them, you're gonna have a hard time working, because when directors refer to those films, you better know those films, and not just the films, but every single shot, every single line, because that's how we know it, right? So that's kind of the students are looking for, is that for the audience that are listening, for example, you're playing games and you think, oh man, I so want to design a character like that, or I want to draw a creature like that. And if I say something like Legend of Zelda, and immediately in your head you'll get images of swords and mountains and shields and monsters, that's probably the kind of student we're looking for, because your imagination is active, right? Or if I say make a planet that's completely made out of spikes and there's no oxygen, whatever, and right away in your head is actually images, and you're getting forms, and that's exactly what we're looking for. The drawing part, don't worry about that. That's just mechanical skill. That takes time. So the brain is what we're looking for. So hope that helps.
For sure, Feng. And just to complement this question, so what kind of career and experience, or and even expectation, a student of your school achieves at the end of the course, so of the end of the programs? It's because you said the brain is always evolving, and in your school you were focused on teaching the core, the basics, the fundamentals of softwares, of course, tools and design, but they need to do something by themselves. But the experience that you have, it's very important. Your school can teach them. So what do you think, from your perspective, at the end of the course, the program, one student from your school gain or achieve, please?
Okay, so the question about what our students will gain after the one-year diploma, and I think one of the biggest thing is, if they want to get in this industry, if they work hard during this 1 year, they have a very high chance of entering them. In fact, our first batch of students, I'm pretty sure all of them are now working in the field as concept designers for games. And that's something they didn't do a year ago. That they came to our school, big eyes, saying I love to design for games and films and stuff, but none of them were. But after a year, they were. So that's I guess the biggest advantage you could gain here. But they all work very, very hard. This school is not easy. Our industry in general is not easy. So I think that's the biggest thing. If you want to get into it, come here, do well, and that's for any school. Go to those schools as well. You probably have a high chance of doing what you want to do, and of course you leave with a great set of skills that allow you to improve over time, to become much better. Even for me, when I got out of school, I'm not where I am today. I was still really, really junior, because what Arsenal taught me was the same thing, which is fundamental ideas, fundamental skills, and the right way to do certain things. So over the last 12, 13, 14 years, whatever, I'm always building upon that knowledge to improve my skills. So my skills the same way. I give you everything you need to further whatever you want to do, digital painting, sketching, design, right? That you have a knowledge of understanding of how to approach it. And I think the YouTube videos give you a general sense of how I teach those, and I think that's why certain people like the way they're taught, because they're I think more scientific based explanations versus more feeling based. Over here when we teach our students is never things like, oh, you should make this part red because it feels good, or you should make this darker because it feels nice to have. No, we'll tell you exactly why that part should be darker or this part be red using scientific explanation, right? Because when we're making a film or a game, it's nothing but a giant illusion. You're creating a 2D image, right? Because you're watching on a TV screen or a computer screen or movie screen. It's a 2D surface, but you're tricking the brain to think that this 2D surface is projecting some kind of 3D image. So it's nothing but a giant magic trick. And you have to know exactly how scientifically to trick the mind using different things like perspective. Perspective is a big visual illusion, right? If you actually think about it, it's a trick to make your brain think they're seeing 3D. So we teach all these things from a science point of view. So when you get out there, you can find yourself in any kind of situation, like you're working on a cowboy film, and then suddenly you're working on Avatar 2 or whatever. You could adopt to these projects, and there's nothing to do with style. It has nothing to do with like, oh, I draw character style, or I draw anime style, or I draw whatever. No, it's about science. Or cowboy stuff, you study. It's in the Midwest, so the sun sets and you get a purple hue color. Okay, then we go to Avatar, higher atmosphere or whatever. You could then adopt scientifically to the design and the rendering method, the lighting, the texture, all that from your experience. So that's exactly what we teach. So, hopefully that answers the question.
All right. All right. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Feng. Uh, it's important so that anybody from the audience or anybody that you're going to see this interview later, if you want to be a Feng Zhu Design School student, so being keep in your mind that it's really important since the beginning, this idea of not only being a very good artist but also being a professional. Act and your behavior as a professional is what really matters and helps you to succeed or not. So we have another question here, very interesting, from Clive Nicholas. How do you break through to the different markets and gain international acceptance? It's very very nice. Thank you, Clive.
Okay, so the question from Clive Nicholas, great question by the way. How do you break through? Um, Nowadays, I think it's so much easier than when I was starting out, because back then internet was still quite new in a way as far as portfolio shows. A lot of companies don't even care about it yet. But these days, if you want to break into international markets, the simple answer is do awesome work, and awesome work that's original. Don't copy stuff, right? Avoid doing fan art type of work. Generally, when we're looking for designers, we don't like fan art because that shows the brain or the thinking method of whoever we're looking at is not in the right place, right? It's okay to like something. It's okay to like Street Fighter and want to draw Ken or Ryu or whatever, but don't put that as your portfolio piece, because you come off as a wrist. That's we call it industry. Basically, someone who draws very well but need a design first to draw it. Right, that's what fan art exactly is. You're drawing somebody else's design. So for an online portfolio, you want to put very cool stuff, but your own stuff, right? Not derivative stuff, not stuff that's from Guild Wars or stuff from World of Warcraft, especially. Right, the bigger the IP, the less you should want to draw from it. Don't draw Avatar characters and stuff, because one, it shows you as someone who follows versus someone who creates. And two, it becomes a security concern for art directors like myself who are hiring, because if I see this person drawing things from other IPs, then I worry that the same designer might end up in my studio and borrow, right, quote unquote, borrow designs from other projects. So how can I trust this person, right? And you don't want this kind of doubt when you're hiring people. I don't want someone to be on my team and then start borrowing stuff from Avatar that wasn't used. That's a huge security concern. So I like to look at portfolios that are always just cool stuff but I haven't seen before. And that's one of the best ways to break into international market, because almost all art directors, I guarantee you, surf the web looking for cool people all the time. And the internet makes it so fast that if I see something cool, I'll just right away
Yes.
send to my friends, to Lucasfilm or whatever. Everyone's seen it. So within half a day, your work is being seen by everyone around the planet. And if you do good work, somebody's going to call you for it. And the international is, I don't think nowadays international has anything to do with it anymore, because the internet makes everything go away. Recently I finished projects for like Ubisoft, and they're in France, you know what I'm saying? So they don't care where I am. So yeah, it's a lot easier these days. But at the end of the day, just do good work. If your work is not good or not international level, I mean very, very pro, you ain't gonna do anything. So hopefully that helps.
All right, thank you very much, Feng. So I guess we are about 8 minutes left. So we have some more couple of questions, but before from the audience. But before that, I would like to ask you, in what are your references in terms of art? I mean, classic painter or CG artist or movie or others, because you deal with such different projects, and for sure the market is like that. So, but I guess you have your preferences, or your reference. So what can you tell us about that, this point, your reference in terms of art and so on, please?
Okay, so my references. I have thousands and thousands of references broken into different categories. One of them are photos that I take myself. When I travel, I take hundreds and hundreds of photos of everything, from textures to details to landscapes, things like that. So I have lots of those. And then I have references I just find from the internet. So those I have a few thousand of. And I build them on, not really, I don't really sit in front of the computer and go, okay, I'm going to start looking for reference for this. They're generally collected over the years from working on various projects. So if you get on a project that you're doing a lot of vehicles, for example, or military vehicles, then I'll probably have a few hundred references from that collected, and then that goes into archives. And then another one is just stuff you get from clients. Oftentimes you work with, for example, with electronic arts or something like that. They have their own research department, and oftentimes they'll provide me with so much reference that they found on their own to me, and then it's mine afterwards. They're not gonna ask for it back. So I have pictures of all sorts of different things that are just really hard to find sometimes. And then there's always books. Books is something that I stressed heavily to today's generation, because I think the internet kills off a lot of love for books. Because if you think about it, when you Google something, most of the images that you're going to find are copyright free, because anything that's in the book most likely is not going to be on the internet, right? Because the author is not going to authorize it. So the best stuff are still inside books. You're not going to Google them at all. So some of the books I have, I bring to my students, they're like amazed the amount of cool stuff that are printed in these things, right? So I have a huge collection. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like a mini library or something like that, in my studio, of anything you could find, from history books to art books to novels to things you find in France, or again has really cool stuff in those little art stores. Books from all over the world. A lot of them not even in English. I can't even understand them, but they have cool images. So that's a big inspiration. And the last one I have for references is things I trade among other designers. When you work in the art department, sometimes that designer will have a couple thousand references they got that are super rare, right? No one has these. And then I have my own batch of stuff that's super rare. And I go, okay, let's make a trade. I'll give you my 1940s Vietnam, jet photos or whatever for your, some kind of machine from China or something that you found, So we trade. So over time, I have a massive amount of references. But the one thing I don't look too many, again, is art of books. I do have them, but I don't consider it to be reference. They're purely as an inspiration to see my peers doing cool stuff, to see what other people in our industry are doing, the techniques, but not a way to say like, okay, if I'm starting a project to do a city, the books that are surrounding me are not going to be art of books. That's really bad because you're looking through influence of somebody else's mind, right? I don't do that. Instead, I have streets of Paris or streets of Germany or whatever. These are things I need to do a new world, or the Himalayas, right? Books, real places, and you then extract those things out, not looking through other artworks, people's things. So I rarely look at art of books for reference. So I think for students it's a very good idea as well, because as a student you're young, and you might, even if you look at someone's work, you might bring 20-30% of that person's work into yours, and that's not good, Whereas if you look at a ant and you turn an ant into a robot, that transformation is 100% your responsibility. Nobody's helping you. So if you do a good job translating an ant into an ant robot, that's 100% owned by you, and that's what it takes to become a professional. So yeah, so references is the key.
Okay. Uh, all right. Thank you, Feng. Uh, I guess my last question, because we are running almost from our time, is well. Okay, we just have here. Yes, we are running on time. Really nice. So, but in what ways can you say now today the digital art is really an art? Okay, because sometimes we still uh, listen to some artists or someone saying that digital art is not as valuable as traditional art. But in what ways can you say today digital art is really an art, and how do you see this or its future, please?
Okay, good question, which is regarding digital art. Is it art? Well, first of all, when I look at my own work, again, I don't see it as artwork. I'm not an artist. The things I paint are not art, really. They're designs. So the way I judge, is it digital? At least in our industry, it doesn't really matter. Is it digital? Is it traditional? Because at the end of the day, if a design eventually makes it into a product like a film, then the design was successful in my book. If a design was cool but it sat in a shelf and never became a book or became a product or a film or a game, then it's just what it is. It's just a piece of creation that are people appreciate it? Sure, but is it a product? Probably not. So in the space it sits in, digital or a sculpture or a ZBrush or a 3D model, it's all about how it's used at the end of the day. Because in our industry, it's the product. It's not the art itself. It's the design. So because anything could be art. right? Obviously, but another point to that though, however, it is interesting because for us, art is not original anymore in digital, because digital you can make copies, so there's never one more original. That's something we actually had a problem with over at Lucasfilm back in '03, working on Star Wars, and for me, they told me to work in traditional medium, because traditional medium still has a value when it's connected to a major IP. So that way, the later these drawings could be archived, they could be shown. Whereas in digital, you can't. The value is not there anymore, right? You can make a perfect copy. It's not even anything changed. It's a perfect copy of it, and there was never an original. However, that's the way times are, and in the design industry, it doesn't really matter actually. We never fall in love with art anyways. Once the film or game releases, we could care less what happens to the drawings, or it doesn't have to be in a museum or in a gallery. It's nothing. If you want to enjoy our products, go play the games or watch the films. That's where our creation lives. The drawing itself is only cool for people that are doing it themselves, but the general public, I don't think they care at all. They care about the final product. So yeah, so the medium, very little influence as far as what I'm concerned.
All right, all right. Thank you, Feng, very much. So we are running out of our time now. I guess 2 or 3 minutes after. So by this time, from our side, I guess the interview is finishing. Uh, I would like to say something more than thank you very much, but I'm really how can I say amazing and impressed by such persona and
Okay, so
his
I
experience.
think we're running out of time here.
So
So
the
to
reference is how much we can learn from his speech and the professional way of doing things. So all of you think very much about you can learn from him. Yes, yes, thank you. So, Feng, we are all ears to you. So, please, you can finish our interview, and thank you very much for everything, for your consideration. It's really amazing. Thank you very much.
Okay, so back to me. So again, thanks you guys for participating and inviting me for this chat. I think it's really cool, inspirational, and I hope some of you in the audience are more inspired to get into this industry, because we do work in such a fun world. To at the end of the day, just ask yourself, what are you doing? Playing games and watching movies. How cool is that? And it's great to have forums like this where we're trying to expose the industry for more people out there. And just for me, if you want to find contact or talk to me and things like that, I'm always available through our school. Just go to our website, which guys you can find pretty easy. Just type my name, you'll find it on Google. FZDschool.com, and we have very helpful staff here to answer your questions. And keep a reminder that the YouTube stuff is always there. Go to YouTube and just type in FZD School. You'll find us, and I'm updating those every week. So hopefully another one will go up in a few days or so. And those will go on for a long time. So with the internet nowadays, ask away whatever concerns you have. We're always over here. So, and for those of you who are already in the industry, keep it up, because I can't wait to play the games and stuff that you guys are working on. So yeah, have fun, and hopefully see some of you guys soon, and we'll see you online, obviously. Okay, thanks everyone.